In a remote military supply depot, a quiet woman in logistics worked methodically, wearing a faded jacket with a mysterious patch. Young recruits mocked it behind her back. Just surplus store junk. Lieutenant Alaric Moreau sneered loudly enough for her to hear. She never responded, just kept counting inventory with precision that went unnoticed until today. When the visiting general saw her patch, his face drained of color. Breaking protocol, he approached her directly. "That's Ghost Division," he whispered, then snapped to attention and saluted her. A superior officer saluting someone everyone thought was just a supply clerk. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, please consider subscribing. We share new military and espionage stories every week. The sprawling military supply depot in Wyoming hummed with activity as Master Sergeant Alira Voss meticulously checked inventory numbers against her clipboard. Her movements were precise and economical. Nothing wasted, nothing hurried. The faded olive jacket she wore had seen better days, as had the mysterious geometric patch on its shoulder. Gray and black shapes that had lost definition over time. Alira ran her finger down the column of figures, mentally calculating discrepancies between expected and actual stock levels. The warehouse was cavernous, filled with shelves reaching toward the ceiling, and stacked with everything from medical supplies to vehicle parts. It was her domain, organized, cataloged, and maintained with military precision that few appreciated. The heavy metal door at the far end of the warehouse swung open with a resounding clang. Lieutenant Alaric Moreau strode through, leading a group of fresh-faced recruits on orientation. His polished boots clicked against the concrete floor as he gestured broadly. "And this is our main supply warehouse," he announced loudly, voice echoing. "Critical to operations, even if it's not exactly where the action happens." His eyes landed on Alira, and he motioned toward her with a dismissive flick of his wrist. "That's Voss. Been here forever. Supply Corps lifers are a different breed." The recruits followed his gaze. One of them, Specialist Lena Kruger, observant and thoughtful, noticed how Alira's hands momentarily paused on her clipboard before resuming their work. "Master Sergeant Voss ensures our equipment is accounted for and ready when needed," Moreau continued, not bothering to lower his voice. "Quite the exciting career counting boxes." Alira didn't look up, simply making another notation on her clipboard. Years of practice had perfected her ability to become almost invisible, a skill she had once used for very different purposes. As the group passed deeper into the warehouse, one recruit whispered, "What's with the jacket patch? Probably some surplus store find." Moreau responded with a smirk, voice intentionally carrying. "Heard she never takes it off. Probably thinks it makes her look like she's seen action." Alira gave no indication she'd heard, but her knuckles whitened slightly around her pen. She continued her inventory as the tour moved on, disappearing behind a row of shelving units stacked with ammunition crates. When they were gone, she allowed herself a single deep breath, then returned to her work. Numbers were predictable. Inventory was controllable, unlike people, unlike memories. Later in the mess hall, Alira sat alone at a corner table, methodically eating while reviewing manifests. The hall buzzed with conversation and laughter, the sounds washing over her without penetration. She had learned to tune out unnecessary stimuli long ago in situations far more chaotic than a military cafeteria. "Mind if I join you, Master Sergeant?" Alira looked up to see Specialist Lena Kruger standing before her, tray in hand. The young woman from the morning tour looked nervous but determined. Alira gestured to the empty seat. "It's a free mess hall, Specialist." Lena sat and after a moment of awkward silence began asking questions about supply logistics. How did they track items across multiple deployments? What systems were in place to prevent shortages in the field? Despite herself, Alira found the questions thoughtful. She explained the intricacies of the military supply chain, and Lena listened with genuine interest. As they talked, Alira's answers revealed an encyclopedic knowledge of equipment specifications and deployment requirements that seemed to exceed what her position would demand. "So, you can tell exactly which units will need resupply before they even request it?" Lena asked, impressed. "It's pattern recognition," Alira replied. Different operations burn through different supplies at predictable rates. Once you understand the mission profile, you can anticipate needs. That sounds more like tactical analysis than inventory management. A slight pause. Good logistics requires understanding the bigger picture. How long have you been in logistics, Master Sergeant? Lena finally asked. 20 years in logistics, Alira replied with practiced ease. Nothing remarkable. As their conversation continued, Sergeant Gregor Halden, the gruff veteran who ran the armory, passed by their table. He nodded at Alira with unexpected deference, a gesture that didn't escape Lena's notice. When Alira left, Lena overheard other recruits at a nearby table joking about the supply sergeant playing soldier with her mystery patch. She watched Alira's straight-backed exit, noting how the older woman moved with a quiet awareness that seemed incongruous with someone who'd spent 2 decades counting inventory. There was something about Master Sergeant Voss that didn't add up, and Specialist Kruger had always been good with numbers. The next morning, chaos erupted in the command center. An emergency request had arrived from a forward operating base. Specialized equipment needed within 48 hours for a critical operation. Lieutenant Alaric Moreau paced as he discussed options with the base commander. The fastest protocol would be to route through Frankfurt, then to Kabul, Moreau insisted, tracing the path on the map spread across the table. Standard procedure. Alira, present to provide inventory numbers, stood quietly near the door. She'd been summoned to confirm they had the requested equipment in stock, a task that had taken her all of 30 seconds. Now she was simply waiting to be dismissed. That puts the delivery at 72 hours minimum, the base commander said, frowning. They need it in 48. We could try expediting through diplomatic channels, but even then, that route won't work, Alira said. All eyes turned to her. Moreau's expression hardened. Excuse me? The equipment won't clear customs through that route, Alira stated flatly. The Peshawar corridor has been compromised for months. The room went silent. The base commander frowned. How would you know that, Master Sergeant? It was in last month's intelligence briefing, she said, then added more softly. The unclassified version. Moreau's face reddened. This isn't about organizing MRE shipments, Voss. This is operational necessity. I understand operational necessity, she responded, her voice maintaining its even tone. That's why I'm suggesting we route through Oman instead. And what makes you think that's feasible? Moreau challenged. The Sultan's Air Force conducts joint exercises with our unit stationed at Al-Udeid. They have clearance for expedited transfers. From there, it's a straight shot to the FOB. The base commander looked thoughtful. That's actually not a bad idea. With all due respect, sir, Moreau continued, we should stick to established protocols. Where did Master Sergeant Voss get her intelligence training? Where did you even get that jacket? He asked, turning to Alira. Playing dress-up with military surplus doesn't give you authority here. The room fell silent. For just a moment, something dangerous flickered behind Alira's eyes. A cold calculation that seemed to assess Moreau not as an annoying superior, but as a potential threat. Then it was gone, replaced by professional detachment. Just trying to help the mission succeed, sir, she said quietly. The base commander studied her for a long moment. I'll make some calls about the Oman route. Thank you, Master Sergeant. That will be all. That evening, Alira worked late, preparing the shipment her way, despite Moreau's objections. The base commander had ultimately sided with her after making some calls, discovering that the Peshawar route had indeed been flagged for security concerns. The warehouse was quiet at this hour, the overhead lights creating pools of brightness amid long shadows. Alira preferred it this way, just her and the equipment. No questions, no curious eyes. Master Sergeant, can I help? Alira turned to find Specialist Lena Kruger standing in the doorway. Shouldn't you be at the barracks, Specialist? I volunteered for extra duty, Lena replied. Lieutenant Moreau said someone should keep an eye on you while you prepare the shipment. A hint of a smile touched Alira's lips. Did he? Now, his exact words were, make sure she doesn't screw this up. But I figured that was unlikely. Your confidence is appreciated. Come help me secure these components. They worked side by side, Alira giving precise instructions as they prepared the specialized equipment. Lena watched as Alira's hands moved with unexpected precision when handling the tactical gear, noting how she instinctively checked the weapon mountings and calibration settings. You've handled these before, Lena observed. Equipment doesn't change much, Alira replied, but her eyes betrayed her. This is classified tech, Lena pressed gently. Most logistics officers wouldn't know how to check the targeting system. Alira met her gaze steadily. I read the manual. Before Lena could respond, the warehouse door opened again. Sergeant Gregor Halden entered, his bulk silhouetted against the light from the hallway. He nodded to Lena, then turned his attention to Alira. Shipment ready? He asked. Almost, Alira replied. Just finishing the secure packaging. Halden watched her work for a moment. Those boys don't know who they're mouthing off to, he muttered. It's better that way, Alira responded quietly. As they continued working, Alira demonstrated knowledge no supply officer should have, describing operational parameters for the equipment, suggesting modifications for desert deployment, even mentioning which units had the best success rates with similar systems. When the shipment was finally sealed and ready, Halden helped them move it to the secure holding area. As they walked back, he fell into step beside Alira. You heard the chatter? He asked quietly. General Hargrove is making an inspection tomorrow. Alira stopped walking. Solomon Hargrove. You know him? Her face revealed nothing, but she swallowed hard. By reputation. Should I put in for leave tomorrow? Halden asked with meaning. In case things get complicated. No, Alira replied after a moment. What's done is done. Lena looked between them, confused by the undercurrent of tension. But before she could ask any questions, Alira turned to her. You should get some rest, specialist. Tomorrow might be interesting. Because of the general's visit? Because every day has the potential to change everything, Alira replied enigmatically. Sometimes you're just waiting for the moment when the past catches up to you. She nodded goodnight and headed toward her quarters, leaving Lena with more questions than answers. As Alira walked away, her hand unconsciously brushed against the faded patch on her shoulder, the symbol of something she had tried to leave behind, but that had never truly left her. Morning brought a flurry of activity as 3-star General Solomon Hargrove arrived for what was billed as a routine inspection. Staff scrambled to prepare while Alira continued her work in the warehouse, seemingly unbothered by the commotion. She had risen early, completed her usual inventory checks, and ensured that yesterday's emergency shipment was properly logged and tracked. Word of the general's visit had spread quickly through the base. Such high-ranking visitors were rare at a supply depot, and speculation ran rampant. Some suggested budget reviews were coming. Others whispered about base closures or reassignments. Alira knew better. Generals didn't make personal visits for budget reviews. Master Sergeant, called Specialist Lena Kruger, hurrying into the warehouse. They're assembling everyone in the main hangar. Lieutenant Moreau sent me to find you. Did he now? Alira replied, setting down her clipboard. And here I thought he'd prefer I stay hidden away with the spare parts. He specifically said your presence was required, Lena insisted. The general wants to inspect all departments. Alira nodded, brushing dust from her uniform. She wore the same faded jacket she always did, the mysterious patch a dull smudge against the olive fabric. For a moment, she seemed to consider removing it, her fingers lingering on the edge before dropping away. Best not keep the general waiting, then, she said finally. In the main hangar, personnel stood arranged by department. The vast space, normally used for vehicle maintenance and equipment distribution, had been hastily transformed into a presentation area. Alira took her place at the back of the logistics team, partially hidden behind taller colleagues. Lieutenant Moreau stood at attention at the front, his uniform immaculate. The base commander entered first, followed by General Hargrove and his aides. Hargrove was a compact man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His 3 stars gleamed on his shoulders, earned through decades of service, and Alira knew some of the most classified operations in modern military history. At ease, the base commander called, and the assembled personnel shifted to parade rest. The inspection proceeded methodically. General Hargrove moved from department to department, asking pointed questions about operations, equipment readiness, and personnel needs. He was thorough but efficient, displaying the focus that had earned him his reputation as one of the military's most effective leaders. As he reached the logistics team, Lieutenant Moreau stepped forward with a crisp salute. Logistics Department, sir. 27 personnel responsible for all supply chain management, inventory control, and equipment distribution for the base and 3 forward operating locations. General Hargrove nodded. Impressive scope. Any significant challenges to report? Lieutenant. Nothing we can't handle, sir. We maintain a 98.7% fulfillment rate on all requisitions, with an average delivery time of 72 hours for standard requests. And emergency requests? 48 hours minimum, sir, though we had a situation just yesterday that required some creative routing. Ah, yes, the general said. I heard about that. The Oman solution was quite resourceful. Was that your idea, Lieutenant? Moreau hesitated, clearly torn between claiming credit and telling the truth. It was actually suggested by one of our NCOs, sir. Excellent. I appreciate officers who recognize good ideas regardless of source. Which NCO? Master Sergeant Voss, sir. Moreau gestured toward the back of the group. The general's eyes tracked the movement, scanning the personnel until they found Alira. For a moment, he showed no reaction. Then his gaze dropped to her shoulder, to the faded patch barely visible in the hangar's lighting. He froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly, the only outward sign of his shock. Without addressing the base commander or acknowledging protocol, he walked directly to Alira, moving past surprised logistics personnel, who stepped aside quickly. When he stood before her, barely an arm's length away, he studied her face with an intensity that made others uncomfortable. Alira met his gaze steadily. That's Ghost Division, he whispered, audible only to those nearby. A profound silence fell over those close enough to hear. The general's aide looked confused. Lieutenant Moreau's expression shifted from smugness to uncertainty. The general straightened to attention and saluted Alira, a superior officer, saluting a supposed enlisted specialist. Major Voss, he said, voice carrying throughout the now silent hangar. I thought all of you were gone. Alira returned the salute with precision that betrayed years of command experience. Not all of us, sir. The assembled personnel began to murmur. Master Sergeant Voss was a major? What was Ghost Division? General Hargrove turned to the stunned base commander. Commander, do you know who you have working in your supply depot? This woman led the most classified special operations unit in modern military history. 12 confirmed operations that changed the course of 3 conflicts. Her existence was scrubbed from official records. Looking back at Alira, the last I heard, your unit was disavowed after Tiran. That's classified information, General, Alira replied. But her cover was irrevocably blown. Lieutenant Moreau's face had gone pale. Specialist Lena Kruger looked at Alira with new understanding. Sergeant Halden stood at attention, confirming he knew all along. The base commander stammered, I had no idea, sir. Her file says 20 years in logistics. Because that's what they wanted it to say, the general responded. Ghost Division was never here, never existed. Except they did. And she was their commanding officer. The awkward moment was shattered by the base alarm. Its harsh blare filled the hangar, causing everyone to tense instinctively. Security breach Sector 4, announced the automated system. All personnel to secure positions. The base commander moved immediately to a nearby communications panel. This is Commander Aldrich Newman. Report. The response came through with bursts of static. Armed intruders have breached the perimeter fence, sir. At least 6 individuals, possibly more. They've disabled the external cameras and communications relay. Casualties? 2 guards down. Condition unknown. The intruders are moving toward the central compound. Lock down all secure areas. Deploy security teams to intercept. The commander turned to General Hargrove. Sir, we need to get you to a secure location. Before the general could respond, Elira spoke. There, after the prototype. All eyes turned to her. What prototype? Demanded Commander Newman. The one in secure storage that officially isn't here, she replied calmly. The one that arrived 3 days ago in an unmarked transport and is scheduled for transfer to quantum research tomorrow. The commander stared at her, then at General Hargrove, who nodded almost imperceptibly. How do you know about that? The commander asked. Because I track everything that comes through this base, Elira responded. And because this isn't random. The timing with the general's visit, the communication disruption pattern, this is a Tyran echo. Tyran? Lieutenant Alaric Moreau asked, now deferential. An operation we ran, she said, and one that got most of my team killed when we were disavowed mid-mission. Someone's using our own playbook against us. Another alarm sounded. Communications jammer detected, announced the system. External communications disabled. They're isolating the base, Elira said. Next they'll cut power to create confusion while a specialized team moves for the objective. As if on cue, the lights flickered and died, leaving only emergency lighting, casting red shadows across concerned faces. General Hargrove turned to Elira. Major, I'm temporarily reinstating your commission. Take charge of the prototype security. Sir, the base commander began to protest, but the general cut him off. Commander, with all due respect, you have a base-wide situation to manage. Major Voss is uniquely qualified for this specific threat. He turned back to Elira. What do you need? Without hesitation, Elira took command. Her entire demeanor transformed, voice authoritative, posture commanding, eyes calculating. The quiet supply sergeant vanished, replaced by someone accustomed to making life-or-death decisions. Small team, for people maximum. Sergeant Halden for firepower, Specialist Kruger for technical support. She paused, looking at Lieutenant Moreau. Someone who knows the current security protocols. Moreau swallowed but nodded. I can assist, Major. Good. We'll need sidearms, tactical comms, and access to the secure storage area. The base commander hesitated only briefly before nodding to his security officer. Get them what they need. As the hangar erupted into organized chaos, security teams deploying and personnel moving to assigned positions, Elira led her small group to a side room where they were quickly equipped. Sergeant Halden checked a pistol before handing it to Elira. Just like old times, Major. Let's hope not, she replied grimly. Last time didn't end well. Lieutenant Moreau stared at her with a mixture of confusion and newfound respect. You really were a major in a special operations unit? Ghost Division doesn't exist in any record, Lieutenant. Never has. She checked her weapon with practiced ease. That was rather the point. But what did you do? He pressed. Elira met his gaze directly. We did what needed doing when no one else could. Operations too sensitive for acknowledgement. Too necessary to ignore. And Tyran? Asked Lena Kruger quietly. A shadow crossed Elira's face. A mission that went wrong because someone decided we knew too much. My team paid the price. She secured her tactical vest. Now, let's make sure history doesn't repeat itself. They moved through the base using service corridors and maintenance tunnels. The main passages were filled with security personnel responding to multiple breach points, creating a distraction from the real target. How do you know about these routes? Moreau asked as they ducked through a narrow passage between buildings. I memorized the structural blueprints my first day here, Elira replied matter-of-factly. Standard procedure for Ghost Division, Lena said quietly. Not for supply officers. Elira's tight smile was her only response. They approached the secure storage facility from a maintenance entrance. Gunfire echoed from elsewhere on the base, but their immediate area was quiet. Too quiet. They're already here, Elira whispered, signaling the team to take cover. As they watched, two black-clad figures emerged from the shadows near the main entrance to the facility. They moved with professional precision, placing small devices at strategic points around the doorway. Breaching charges, Halden murmured. They're expecting the prototype to be inside, Alira said. But it's not. We moved it yesterday after the emergency shipment came in. It's in Warehouse 3. Moreau stared at her. How do you know that? Even I wasn't informed of a location change. Because I'm the one who suggested it, she replied. Standard Ghost Division protocol. Never keep high-value targets where they're expected to be. So what's the plan? Lena asked. We let them breach an empty room while we secure the real prototype. Alira checked her weapon again. But first, we need to identify who we're dealing with. These aren't ordinary mercenaries. They circled around using the confusion of the base's multiple security breaches as cover. As they approached Warehouse 3, Alira signaled for them to hold position. She studied the seemingly deserted building, noting subtle signs that would be invisible to most. A security camera turned at a slightly wrong angle. A door left microscopically ajar. There's at least one inside, she whispered. Possibly more. How can we get in without alerting them? Moreau asked. We don't, Alira replied. We make them come to us. Alira moved with practiced efficiency, outlining her plan in concise terms. They would create a diversion at the main entrance while she accessed the warehouse through a maintenance hatch in the roof. A vulnerability she had noted during her first week at the base but had never reported. Once I'm inside, I'll identify the hostiles and secure the prototype, she explained. When you hear 3 clicks on the comm, move in through the side entrance. You're going in alone? Moreau asked, concerned. It's what I was trained for. She checked her sidearm one final time. Remember, these aren't ordinary intruders. They're using Ghost Division tactics, which means they're either former members or they've been briefed by someone who was. Sergeant Halden nodded grimly. Watch yourself, Major. If they know Ghost Division tactics, they'll be expecting counters. That's counting on us following protocol, Alira replied. Fortunately, I was never very good at following rules. She moved off into the shadows, seeming to disappear completely despite the open terrain between buildings. Specialist Kruger blinked in surprise. How did she do that? Ghost Division, Halden said simply. There's a reason they were called that. Alira reached the warehouse roof undetected, using the base's emergency generators and their accompanying noise to mask her movements. The maintenance hatch was still secured by the standard issue lock, unchanged in the years since she'd first noted it. Some vulnerabilities persisted simply because no one looked for them. She slipped inside, descending silently into the darkness of the warehouse's upper level. The emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow, creating more shadows than illumination, perfect for someone trained to use darkness as cover. From her vantage point among the overhead beams, she surveyed the warehouse floor. 3 figures in tactical gear moved with military precision among the shelves. They communicated through hand signals, maintaining radio silence. Professional, disciplined, dangerous. At the far end of the warehouse, she spotted what they were looking for. The prototype secured in its specialized transport container. Unlike the decoy in the secure storage facility, this was the real thing, a next-generation targeting system that could revolutionize battlefield awareness. Alira observed the intruders' movement pattern, noting their coordination and blind spots. They were good, very good, but they were searching methodically based on standard storage protocols. They didn't know she had personally reorganized this warehouse to be deliberately counterintuitive. She clicked her comm 3 times, signaling her team. Then she moved, dropping silently behind the nearest intruder. Alira subdued him with a precision chokehold before he could alert his companions. She lowered his unconscious form noiselessly to the floor, securing his weapons and comm device. 1 down, 2 to go. The warehouse door burst open as Moreau triggered the diversion. The remaining intruders spun toward the noise, weapons raised, just as Alira emerged from between 2 shelving units behind them. I wouldn't, she said calmly, her weapon trained on the closer of the 2. They froze, then slowly turned. The leader's eyes widened slightly behind his tactical mask. Stand down and identify yourselves, Alira ordered. You first, the leader replied, his voice distorted by his mask. You know exactly who I am, she said. Otherwise, you wouldn't be using my playbook. The standoff lasted only seconds before Halden, Moreau, and Kruger entered through different access points, surrounding the intruders. Drop your weapons, Halden commanded. After a moment's hesitation, the intruders complied. As they lowered their guns, the leader removed his mask, revealing a face Alira had never expected to see again. Hello, Major Voss, he said with genuine surprise. They told us you were dead. Alira maintained her aim, but shock rippled through her. Captain Adrian Rayner, she said, voice steady despite the emotional turmoil beneath. You know him? Moreau asked, keeping his weapon trained on the other intruder. He was my second in command, Alira replied. In Ghost Division. Rayner smiled thinly. Until Tyrion. Until we were abandoned. I thought everyone died in the extraction, Alira said. I was told there were no survivors. Just like I was told you were killed by the airstrike, Rayner replied. Convenient lies to keep us apart. To keep the truth buried. What truth? That Tyrion was a setup, he said. They wanted Ghost Division gone. We knew too much, saw too much, became a liability instead of an asset. Alira's mind raced, reassessing years of grief and guilt. She had carried the weight of her team's deaths, believing she had somehow failed them. To find one alive after all this time was both a shock and a vindication. That doesn't explain why you're here now, stealing military property, she said. This isn't theft. It's recovery, Rayner countered. That prototype wasn't developed by our government. It was stolen from a research facility in Tyrion, the same facility we were sent to infiltrate 6 years ago. The same mission that got our unit disavowed. The warehouse fell silent as this information sank in. Alira remembered Tyrion all too well. The mission parameters had changed mid-operation. Communication channels had mysteriously failed, and their extraction had never arrived. She'd barely escaped with her life while her team was presumed lost. Who sent you, Rayner? The same people who know the truth about what happened in Tyrion. The same people who want justice for Ghost Division. Before Alira could respond, the warehouse was flooded with light as the base power came back online. The doors burst open again, this time revealing General Hargrove and a tactical team. Stand down, everyone, the general ordered. Situation contained. Alira didn't lower her weapon. Is it, sir? Captain Rayner seems to think Tyrion wasn't an operation gone wrong, but a deliberate purge. General Hargrove's expression remained neutral. Captain Rayner was declared killed in action 6 years ago. Clearly not, Alira replied. Which makes me wonder what else in the official record might be inaccurate. The tension in the warehouse was palpable. Halden and Moreau exchanged uncertain glances while Kruger watched the unfolding drama with wide eyes. Major Voss, the general said carefully, I suggest we continue this conversation in a secure location. There are matters regarding Ghost Division that remain highly classified. Like the fact that our mission in Tyrion was to recover stolen technology. Technology that somehow ended up back in our government's possession? Alira challenged. Rayner nodded. The prototype is the proof. Its core components have Iranian manufacturing signatures, but the casing has been replaced with American materials. General Hargrove sighed. It's considerably more complicated than that, Major. But yes, there are aspects of the Tyrion operation that were compartmentalized, even from you. My team died because of those compartmentalized aspects, Alira said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Not all of them, the general replied significantly. As I told you earlier, we've been reassembling what's left of Ghost Division. Off the books. Alira finally lowered her weapon. Realization dawning. This wasn't a real breach. This was a test. Not entirely, Hargrove admitted. Captain Rayner's team was indeed sent to recover the prototype, but by a faction within our intelligence community that believes it should be returned to its origin. Other elements disagreed. And I was caught in the middle again, Alira said. Just like Tyrion. With one critical difference, the general said. This time, You proved that despite years of hiding, your skills and instincts remain intact. Ghost Division may have been officially disavowed, but its necessity never disappeared. He turned to address everyone present. What happened here tonight is classified at the highest level. As far as the official record is concerned, we experienced a security drill during a power outage, nothing more. The tactical team began securing the area, escorting Raynor's associate outside. Raynor himself remained, his eyes fixed on Alira. "They want us back, Alira," he said quietly. "The mission that got scrubbed in Tyran, it's active again." For the first time, genuine emotion crossed Alira's face, a complex mixture of grief, purpose, and perhaps hope. Outside the warehouse, as the situation was contained and the base returned to normal operations, Specialist Lena Kruger waited. When Alira finally emerged, Lena stood at attention and offered a perfect salute. "Is it true what they're saying, ma'am? About Ghost Division?" Alira studied the young specialist. "Ghost Division doesn't exist, specialist. Never has. That's what makes us ghosts." But she returned the salute with precision, acknowledging the respect. As Alira walked across the base toward her quarters, personnel who previously ignored her now stood aside. Lieutenant Alaric Moreau approached, his earlier condescension replaced by awkward deference. "Major, I want to apologize for my behavior," he said stiffly. "I had no idea who you were or what you'd done." "That was rather the point, Lieutenant," she replied. "And your instinct to question authority isn't necessarily wrong, just misdirected. In my experience, the most dangerous orders are the ones no one questions." He nodded, taking the lesson to heart. "Thank you, ma'am." In her quarters, Alira packed her sparse belongings with methodical efficiency. The same precision she'd applied to inventory control, now directed toward preparing for a mission she never expected to face again. She carefully removed the faded jacket and held it for a moment, studying the worn patch that had inadvertently revealed her true identity. From her footlocker, she retrieved another jacket, similar in design, but newer, with a crisp, clear patch bearing the geometric pattern now recognizable as the Ghost Division insignia. Sergeant Gregor Halden appeared in her doorway. "They're waiting for you, Major." "Who's they, Sergeant?" "What's left of your team, ma'am. Plus some new blood." He paused. "Including Specialist Kruger." General Hargrove was impressed by her performance tonight. Alira raised an eyebrow. "Kruger is not special operations trained." "Neither were you once," Halden replied with a rare smile. "Ghost Division was always about finding talent in unlikely places." She shouldered her bag, her bearing now unmistakably that of a commanding officer rather than a logistics specialist. The quiet supply sergeant was gone, replaced by Major Alira Voss, the leader who had once directed the most secretive operations unit in modern military history. "Time to be a ghost again," she said, walking toward her future. As she crossed the base one final time, she noted how differently people saw her now, with respect, with awe, with curiosity. For years, she had hidden in plain sight, finding solace in anonymity and routine. Now she would step back into the shadows for a different reason. Not to hide, but to operate as she had been trained to do. The faded patch that had been her downfall would now be her resurrection. Ghost Division lived again, and with it the purpose she had thought forever lost in Tyran.